Hey everyone, welcome back to the Love Insight Show. And here we are, season 4. Can you believe it's been that long since we've been doing this?
I know. Time really does fly.
This got us through COVID, and back in the day, we were using a different platform. And then now we're on social media live, and hopefully, people are enjoying the content on dating and relationships and everything in between. Today, we're talking about love resolutions and staying committed beyond Quitter's Day. As we know, or most of us might know, that Quitter's Day was Friday of last week. And people make these resolutions about love and anything else, and then they quit. And so we want to motivate you to stay committed to your love goals for 2025. And we hope to give you some nuggets that you can follow to really make it work.
Well, I think the first question is, did you set dating, if you're single, did you set dating and relationship goals for yourself? What I oftentimes find with singles is that they just want things to effortlessly fall into place, and they don't actually want to make an effort to achieve their dating and relationship goals. And sometimes that's what's preventing them from getting into their ideal relationship, is simply making the effort. So if you are single and you haven't made dating and relationship goals, that's step one.
Yeah. Brandon, I heard what you said, and I actually think that people are told not to. I feel like so many people are told, like, don't worry, it's going to happen when you least expect it. And then you just have to think, oh, next year, it's like all of a sudden we go from midnight 2024 to 2025, and then some miracle happens, and all of a sudden things are going to start falling into place. And I really, it just annoys me with the so much garbage that's put out there to misinform people, right? That just don't worry when you least expect it. So your point is so important that you need to make a decision. The decision drives everything. Like, just saying this is what I'm going to do now gives you the next step of, like, what are the steps you're putting into place and mindset, etc., which we'll go over now. So thank you for saying that, because that seems very like a basic thing to say, but it's so missed in this whole process.
Well, what I will say is, like, something that I'm really excited about for 2025 is this emphasis on intentional dating.
Mhm.
This buzzword intentional dating really gained momentum during 2024, and it's something that I've capitalized on in my own coaching business. Encouraging my clients to date intentionally. But the problem with intentional dating is that people don't really know what it means. What I have found is that there's this misconception that intentional dating just means being really picky or really selective. But I define intentional dating as dating with the intention of achieving a specific dating or relationship goal. And so, first you have to set your dating and relationship goals to then be able to actually date intentionally. It's really interesting about this idea of dating intentionally. I think on the converse of dating intentionally is the philosophy we were just talking about of not actually putting in an effort. Because if you even think about the phrase falling into love, it sounds incidental, right? And in fact, the Latin root of the word incident or incidental means to fall. And if
Mhm.
you think about an incident, it's not something good, right? Usually, an incident, the connotation is negative. It means that something accidentally negatively happened. It was an incident.
And you
And
lose
so,
agency too. Like, if you don't have agency in the actions that or the things happening in your life, then
yes. And so when people, the phrase to fall into love really means that you're dating incidentally, which just increases the likeliness of something going wrong or something negative happening. Because remember, an incident is negative. So don't date incidentally, date intentionally. And the Latin root of the word intentionally means to reach for. So when you're dating intentionally, you are reaching for a specific dating and relationship goal.
I love it. I love it. And I always say, if you aim at nothing, you're going to hit it every time. So, right? So having that target and having that plan A of what you want to accomplish really gets you focused. And now you know that you're here, you want to get there, and now you can put some coordinates in places. And that's kind of what we want to talk about. So I want to say that for men who want to achieve a goal, what the research shows is that you want to take certain milestones and steps and kind of break things down. Even though you have a bigger end goal, you want to set smaller goals in between in order for you to stay focused, because what it does is you can hit those, check marks or scratch things off your list, and it motivates you to stay on, continue forward. Whereas with women, because we're more community based as species, right? The females, we need to talk about it. We need to tell everybody what our goals are, and even engage people into what your goals are so that you can achieve them, because you have, as you mentioned, Brandon, we were talking before, that social accountability where you're going to stick with the goals that you have when you're able to speak them out loud. So post it on social media, tell everybody, and then, turn everybody into your matchmaker. Like, that's a whole other that's a whole other session that we need to do on turning everybody into your matchmaker. But what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think from an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense about gender differences. When we think about the evolution, like from an evolutionary perspective, females tend to be more community oriented. It's how they have survived. It's also where that saying, it takes a village to raise a child, because the idea that it's community driven, like women are more community driven, they support each other in their goals for the overall well-being of the individual as well as for their community. And so it makes sense to me that then women could help each other, hold each other accountable to their dating and relationship goals by sharing it with their community, creating this social accountability and supporting each other. Whereas men, from an evolutionary perspective, are much more individualistic, which is kind of what you're talking about, where they're setting their individual goals and they're focusing on it, and they might not even be communicating it to others, but they're coming up with ways to hold themselves accountable in a more individualistic manner. And just from a habit formation perspective,
Mm.
anytime you have this more abstract goal or just something in your brain that you want to achieve, you need to transform it into an actionable item, because habits are primarily formed in our like through our one of the systems of the brain that's primarily responsible for habit formation is the basal ganglia. And the basal ganglia is also what controls movements of our body, motor functions.
Mm.
And so if you take an abstract goal and you turn it into something that requires actual motion or movement, you're going to engage more of that basal ganglia, which is going to be more likely to help you turn this abstract goal into an actual habit. And the idea of that is, it sounds, I mean, there's kind of more of the science behind it, but just from a very logistic, simple perspective, if your goal is to lose weight, you can't just say, I'm going to lose weight this year. You need to say, okay, well, what can I actually do to lose weight? And you might say, something that I can do to lose weight is to work out 3 days a week. Or something I can do to lose weight is to maybe drink more water and less sugary beverages. So anytime you have a goal in mind, something you want to achieve, you need to take this abstract idea, this desire, and turn it into something that you can actually execute from a motor perspective.
Yeah. I think the other thing that is really important is to remove, or first identify and remove the obstacles. And often when people have a desire to achieve something, they don't realize that what they're doing on a regular basis, for example, if you lack time, or if you haven't allocated time for this thing that you want to achieve, that's something that needs to be worked on in order for you to get there. or if there's a mindset issue, it's something that needs to be worked on in order for you to be able to achieve it. Or perhaps you want to do certain things physically to, get a new haircut or do something different in order for you to feel confident in what you're doing. So these are going to be the obstacles that are going to get in your way. So when you're creating this goal, you have a love goal, then maybe look at, okay, what are the things that I can do and what are the things that I don't want to do or things that I need to eliminate, and really look at that more strategically, because love just doesn't happen. You need to make it happen, right? And it takes a lot. It takes, mental energy, physical activity, as you mentioned, and putting that effort forward and consistency in order for you to achieve the goal. So I think this is really, really important to start looking at, for example, your calendar. Do a calendar audit and see where you can carve out time where you can consistently make a move to either go somewhere and frequent a location that's going to be an interesting place for you to meet someone, or if you're online, choose someone that you can go on a date with. If you don't have anything going on, you yourself might take yourself on a date. Go to a really nice restaurant, sit at the bar, make eye contact, interact with people. I mean, these are the things that are going to get you to your goal.
Yes, I love the idea of people first identifying their barriers, because if they don't, that's going to contribute to quitting, right? They're going to get discouraged. They're going to feel like, this isn't working for me. So definitely take a look at like what are the barriers that could potentially get in your way, so that way you can, gain momentum and not hit obstacles and then feel discouraged and quit. Um, it's really important for people to think about what's within my control and what I can do. And so if, like, say for example, you might not be able to guarantee that you go out on a date every Friday, because that's very much contingent on another person, on other people, on a romantic candidate. But what you can say is, I'm going to create a designated date day once a week. And whether that is going out on a date with a romantic candidate, whether it's going out with one of my friends, with a family member, or even on a self date, I'm going to allocate one day per week. It's my designated date day where I'm going to focus on some type of relationship. Again, whether it's the relationship with myself or relationship with others. That's something that you can control. But if people say, I'm going to go out on a date every Friday with a romantic candidate, that's an unrealistic goal, and they're setting themselves up for failure because it's not completely within their control. So that's a good example of identifying a barrier and making sure that you're creating the right goals for yourself. So one of the things I encounter as like a dating coach is that even if somebody is really disciplined and they're very committed and they're really good at complete executing goals, sometimes they don't set the right goals for themselves to achieve their desired outcome. And that oftentimes leads to failure. It's like kind of going to have, again, like using this example, like say a fitness goal, saying like, I want to have a six pack, and then you go to the gym and you're not doing the right exercises to work out your abs. Well, you're not going to get a six pack regardless, despite going to the gym and doing exercises regularly. So you need to make sure that you're doing the right motions, executing the right actions to actually create the outcome you desire.
Yeah, and I think that's an area where seeking support from a professional could be very helpful. As you mentioned, either a coach or a matchmaker or a therapist, whatever you need to get the support in terms of someone holding you accountable, encouraging you, and being your cheerleader when things don't go exactly the way you planned. That's really important. I also think it's important to set some things in place so that you don't give up, but you do allow yourself to feel whatever disappointments. And maybe it's through journaling, maybe it's through meditation, or anything, working out, to deal with the emotions that come with, because with love goals there are disappointments. There's a whole cell selection process that you cannot control, right? You're going to opt out of certain situations, other people will opt out, and it's not a reflection of you. It's just has to do with what they're looking for and what you're looking for. So that's a process, and a lot of people look at that as rejection, and then they have big emotions about things, or sometimes they get a little ahead of themselves and they think, oh my god, this person's great on paper, and then it doesn't work out, and it the emotions take over. So that's where you want to have some things in place to help you navigate, those emotions through journaling, meditation, working out, listening to sad songs, believe it or not. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's been proven in the research that if you're sad and you listen to sad songs, you actually feel better. Don't ask me why, but there's actual
Yes,
research
I
on
think it's
this.
probably a form of catharsis.
Yeah.
You're like actually like feeling the emotion and releasing it, and
Hmm.
you're acknowledging it and releasing it because you can't really release an emotion unless you first acknowledge it.
Exactly. Yeah.
One of the other things is that I encourage all of my clients to focus on the process, not the outcome, because disappointment happens when our expectations don't align with reality. Right. And so when we feel disappointed or discouraged, that's what then motivates us to quit, to quit, or demotivates us and to achieve our goal. And so when you're focusing on a specific outcome, you're more likely to experience that disappointment. Again, I use fitness goals because I used to do lifestyle consulting before dating coaching, and I focused a lot on habit setting behaviors for my clients, and I still do that in dating coaching. And I used to encourage all of my clients not to focus on a specific weight. I'm like, don't focus on the number. You're what you should be focusing on is the process of working out and eating healthy, because that's within your control. The outcome isn't always within your control. So same thing with like dating is like,
Hmm.
don't focus on the specific outcome of I'm going to get into a relationship. I'm going to go out on 3 dates this week with a romantic candidate. Those are again things outside of your control. So focus on the process as opposed to the outcome. And then, that way you can feel accomplished just by executing the things within your control by focusing on the process. Some goals that, like, depending on what stage somebody's at, whether it's they're at the stage where they're just trying to attract romantic candidates, or whether they have romantic candidates that they're dating and they're trying to assess who's the best fit. There's different love goals that you can set at different stages. But some good state, like I want to talk about the initial stage, just attracting romantic
Hmm.
candidates. Some good love goals that I recommend for my clients is something as simple as I'm going to send 5 messages through an online dating app every morning. I'm going to add 5 people on social media that I find attractive every day to grow my social network online, and therefore maybe create more romantic opportunities. I'm going to go to the gym in the business district where I know that where it's more likely to have the types of people I'd want to date at least once a week, even though it's not the gym that's closest to me. Right? They're setting these goals that are actually focusing on the process as opposed to the outcome, but these steps are going to be likely to create more opportunities for them to achieve the desired outcome.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that persistence matters. And I'll give you a quick story. My husband and I met on Match.com almost 14 years ago. And he messaged me, and I read his message, and he's actually really funny. And then I deleted it. Then he sent me another message, read it, then deleted it. He sent me the third message. I read it and deleted it. By the fourth message, I was like, you must be hideous looking, because if you were as cute as your messages, you would have a photo. And the next day, he had a photo. And then I was like, well, why didn't you have a photo to begin with? He's like, well, I didn't know how to upload a photo. I had my niece do it.
Oh,
So
how cute.
persistence, right? Persistence is so important, and not giving up until you get a yes or a no. That is something that people need to learn.
I agree. I mean, to a certain degree, the initial stages of the courtship is like a sales process. And like you got to know how to yourself position yourself. You need to know how to sell yourself. You need to know your target demographic. You need to know what's going to appeal to your target demographic. You need to know how to overcome objections in a tactful and attractive way, in a way that's going to appeal to them. It's very much a sales process. And even if you're in the courtship period, like I think one of the biggest benefits of matchmaking is of course like the feedback process, right? Because if something hasn't been working for someone, the matchmaking process can help reveal what's been preventing them. Sometimes it's something simple and sometimes it might be something more complex. But if I have a client and we're in the through going through the matchmaking process together, and we identify something that's a barrier. We might set their love goals might be to overcome something as simple as overcoming that barrier. For example, could be vulnerability. Like perhaps we're getting feedback that um, their candidates perceive them as closed off or not open, and therefore I then communicate that to the client and I tell them that they should be more vulnerable, and then we come up with a concrete way, something they can do on every date to demonstrate that vulnerability. And I hold them accountable on every day. I'm like, all right, don't forget to engage in your vulnerability action item. It's a way that I can hold them accountable because it's a measurable action item. They can hold themselves accountable, and it's a very strategic action item intended to help them date intentionally to achieve their relationship goal.
Yeah, and I think perfect timing to bring that up because I was going to say if you really have given up already on your relationship goals, a good way to stay committed is to invest in working with a matchmaker. Because to your point, Brandon, a matchmaker, and a lot of people who haven't worked with a matchmaker wouldn't know this, but anytime you go on a date, they get feedback from the person that you met with and they'll get your feedback and then they're able to use that information in a very strategic way, and this is not something that you're going to get on your own because the reality is when you're dating, people don't tell you why they don't want to see you anymore. Most of the time they just ghost you. Unfortunately, that's like the thing that people do. Back in the old days when I was single, they actually would break up with you for the most part. Nowadays, it's like
Well, they would do
ghosting.
more. They just make up excuses. It's not you.
It's
It's
not you,
me.
it's me, right? But they don't give you the legit reason why, whatever it is about you. So you don't get to learn this about yourself. And that's the beauty of working with a professional that can garner that information and help you be a better dater. I always use the example of a gentleman that was a client when I was a matchmaker, and he would talk too much. And it wasn't the first person who went out with him, the second or the third. I mean, it was all of them said the same thing. So a good matchmaker is going to gather that information, give you ways to overcome it, like you said, to give you strategic tools of what you can do so that you limit talking too much or being, that you are able to be vulnerable. So, yeah, I think that's a very important thing. When you're ready to give up, go find an accountability partner or make an investment like hiring a matchmaker because then that's going to keep you committed because it is an investment.
Yeah, I love that idea. And also, going back to that idea of setting goals that are within your control. Like for example, going back to the example of somebody wanting to learn how to be more vulnerable. They don't have to wait until a romantic date to be more vulnerable. A way that they can control that is that I'm going to practice being vulnerable in all of my relationships. So
Mhm.
whether it's like with a friend, a family member, a coworker or something, when I see the opportunity to be vulnerable, I will do that so that when I am on a date, I will have already started to engage in this behavior and it will feel more normal, more comfortable to me, and I'll be able to execute it more smoothly. Like the key to developing a habit is repetition.
Mhm.
And so finding as many opportunities to repeat a behavior is just going to be more likely that it's going to turn into a habit. And if you're doing the right habits that are going to contribute to the outcome you desire, you're only going to get there faster if you stay committed and find as many opportunities to practice that behavior as possible.
Yeah. Well, I think we've shared quite a bit that I believe, will be very helpful for people to maintain those relationship goals, do not give up on love, because everybody deserves to love and be loved. And I'm hoping that this year we get a little bit more engagement and people send us some messages or questions in the chat, since we're here live on social media. We'll continue to bring you every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Love Insight Show, with your beautiful host, Brandan Rader, a psychological researcher and dating coach and matchmaker, and just fabulous. And of course, I'm here, Arlene Washburn, ethical matchmaking advocate. And for the daters, you're always welcome to join the Worldwide Referral Network. We can set you up to work with a fabulous matchmaker who's ethical and very good at what they do. So, yeah, anything you want to add, Brendan, before we close out the show?
No, I'm excited for 2025. And if, yeah, I guess I do want to add something. If anybody
Yeah.
does want to reach out to me, send me a message. If they have questions, I'm always happy to answer if I have any insight that I feel would be valuable and helpful.
Yeah, and definitely do that, because Brandon is very good at what he does,
Oh.
both as a matchmaker, dating coach. So I highly recommend him. All right. Well, bye for now. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. And we'll see you